Isaiah chapter 53. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of the dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering. Like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows, yet we considered him stricken by God, smitten by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. We are like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before his shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away, and who can speak of his descendants? For he was cut off from the land of the living, from the transgressions of my people he was stricken. He was assigned a grave with the wicked, and with the rich in his death. Though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth, yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. And though the Lord makes his life a guilt offering, he will see his offsprings and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. After the suffering of his soul, he will see the light of life and be satisfied by his knowledge. My righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death and was numbered with the transgressors. For he bore the sin of many, and he made intercession for the transgressors.
Thank you so much for that. That was fantastic. If you could only take one chapter with you, if there was only one chapter that you were allowed in prison, what chapter would it be? For me, it would be this chapter, Isaiah 53. If you like, this is the centre point of which the whole of the Bible hinges around. It's in the Old Testament. It's Isaiah again, and he is shown what the real answers to the problems are. He is shown that the answers are not with the prophets. The answers are not with the kings. We've seen how that didn't work. Not with the law. And here he gets the insight that the answers are someone that will be sent. Now here he doesn't know it's going to be the Son of God. He doesn't know it's going to be Jesus. But we can just feel the love of the Father as he describes the difficulties of his Son being sent. His Son was not going to be sent as a king. He's not going to be sent as a wise man. He's not going to be sent with any of that sort of thing. But it says in verse 3, he was despised and rejected by men. And for many of us, even the smallest bit of rejection is painful. What would it have been like to be Jesus rejected day and day after from Nazareth, from his own people? And then it tells us in verse 4, surely he took our infirmities. If you like, the very parts of us that we mentioned before that are weak, the bits of us that just are not really almost made for this world, whether it's the spiritual or the moral. And he took up our infirmity and he carried our sorrows. How sad it is that Jesus offers to carry the sorrows, and in the current climate there is so much sorrow, there is so much grief, and if we choose to hold on to it, the only response is we become numb. But if we let our sorrows go, if we spend time with Jesus, putting those sorrows, if you like, the only thing that we can bring to the cross is the sorrows of who we are, of what's happened in our lives. And we find out that it cost him, for he was pierced for our transgressions. You know, there were always repercussions of sin and weakness. We've seen that throughout the scripture. And if you like, here, it's like the repercussions of our sin are being taken by his very body. For he was pierced for our transgressions, and he was crushed for our iniquities, and the punishment that brought peace was on him. And here we go, by our wounds we were healed. If you like, the cross is always to be the centre point of Scripture, whichever place you start on, because it's at the cross that, if you like, our souls are met with their eternity. It's at the cross that sin is finally dealt with. It's at the cross that Satan is defeated. That's the centre point. And as a result of all that going on, in the same way that the fall had such repercussions throughout time because of the fall in the Garden of Eden, in the same way the cross has repercussions both going backwards and going forwards. That much of the stuff we've looked at, much of the stuff when God was kind and generous to Abraham and to people, it was because he knew that his son had been sacrificed on the cross. He knew that price had been paid. And so, if you like, the goodness and mercy that followed David was cost. The cost of that came at the cross. And then we can then identify that it talks about we've all gone astray. That we can identify with the children of Israel going astray. We go astray. And we turn to our way. We're in a time of individualness where it's our way. And our way is truth. And we've turned to our way. And yet he was led like a lamb to the slaughter. He was cutting. All of this he did in order that we might know what it was to be fully human, that we might know why we were on this world, that we might not be trapped. So today, let us spend time at the cross. Let the cross be the centre point of our lives. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you'll be able to come again tomorrow.